Who am I? Where do I come from? Why do I live? These three questions render all of humanity speechless. Some questions are not meant to be answered, but to be felt in silence, not because no one can speak, but because the more one tries to speak, the further one drifts away. Who am I? Where do I come from? Why do I live? These three questions seem simple, yet they have caused even the greatest minds to sit in quiet reflection for 1,000 years. Not because they had never considered them, but because the more they thought, the more they felt their own helplessness. Socrates, who told us to know ourselves, is the same one who declared, "I know that I know nothing." The Buddha, who renounced palace splendor to seek liberation, after 49 days of meditation under the Bodhi tree, chose to remain silent for the first 3 days after his awakening. Jiva Krishnamurti, chosen as a spiritual leader from childhood, firmly stated, "Truth is a pathless land." Why did these figures, when faced with these three questions, offer no answer? Perhaps because they understood that the truest response does not reside in words, and that pursuing it with reason only leads one deeper into one's own labyrinth. Who am I? A child may answer this easily, but a meditation master or a philosopher may spend decades dismantling each layer of what they imagine themselves to be. Am I the name my parents gave me, the body sitting here, or the stream of thoughts telling me I am listening to a video on life philosophy? This question is not merely a curiosity, it is a portal. Once you step through, there is no turning back. Where do I come from? It is not about birthplace, citizenship, or genetic inheritance, but something deeper. Where did this awareness begin? Did it arise in the mother's womb, or from an even more ancient memory that we have forgotten? Some believe we come from God. Others believe we are formed by matter and time. Still others see themselves as the continuation of a never-ending cycle of karmic consciousness. Each perspective may differ, and none is wrong if one dares to live honestly with that question. Why do I live? Not to succeed, not to become famous, not to possess, for eventually all of those things will fall away. What, then, remains? Some live for faith. Others live for love. Some live for revenge. Others live to forgive. There are those who live simply because they do not know what else to do. Yet there is a rare kind of person who lives not to attain anything but to witness what is unfolding, who lives as a mindful presence amid the myriad clouds of distraction. They do not live for something. They live in what is. Perhaps you have heard these three questions before. Perhaps you have answered them in many ways. But today, if you truly sit down and let your heart settle a little, you may realize you have never really looked straight at them. Not because you were wrong, but because you live in a world that demands immediate answers, that teaches you that you must have a reason to exist, a purpose for every action. Yet if there is something beyond all obligations, it is these three questions. They do not need answers. They only need a soul still enough to feel the silence they bring. And if you're still here, sitting with me in silence, perhaps these three questions have begun to kindle something within you. Not a new belief, not a new definition, but a strange sensation that you still do not know who you are. And yet something deep inside is awakening. It does not need to be named in haste. It only needs your courage to continue the journey. You are not your name. You were called. When you were born, you had no name. You did not know who you were. You did not know your gender. You had no profession, no nationality, no religion, no image of yourself. Yet you still lived. You still felt. You still were present. What you had then was not a biography, but something more pristine, pure awareness without label, without description, without distinction. Very soon, you were given a name. From that moment, a story began. Call you Nam or Hung or Min or Lan. Gradually, that name clung to your mind as if it were you. But have you ever stopped to ask whether that name is truly you, or merely a sound assigned to a life that no one fully understands? From your name, more labels were added. Good child, excellent student, engineer, entrepreneur, mother, father, good person, bad person, successful person, failure. These labels accumulated over the years until you no longer saw yourself. You only saw the roles you played. Each role demands a mask, and each mask requires you to live according to it, no matter how panicked or exhausted you may feel inside. Psychology calls this identifying with roles. When you are a mother for too long, you believe you are only a mother. When you are a director for too long, you fear losing that title as if you would lose yourself. When you are praised as kind, you begin to fear showing genuine anger lest you disappoint others. And so you start living not to live, but to preserve an image of yourself in the eyes of others. But if you are no longer a name, no longer a title, no longer a role, what are you? If one day you lost your memory and every concept of yourself, would you still exist? Would the awareness listening to these words vanish? If you had no name, you could still feel. If you did not know who you are, you could still see, hear, touch, love, suffer, and awaken. So what are you if not the name you are called? Modern neuroscientists point out that the brain contains no center for a self. All that you think of as I is memory repeated so many times that you believe it to be real. But memories can change. Beliefs can change. Emotions can change. The only constant is the awareness witnessing those changes. Buddhism calls it knowing mind. Existential philosophy calls it self-reflective consciousness. Jitta Krishnamurti called it thought-free awareness. And you? What do you call it? Or have you never noticed that it is there, regardless of who you think you are? We live in a world that equates a name with an identity. Everyone asks what you do, where you come from, which school you attended. Few ask whether you are truly alive, whether you are being driven by an image. Do you dare to discard every title until only a being truly present remains? That question is not easy to answer because it does not allow you to hide behind any role. It returns you to your original state before you were given a name. When you are merely a living being breathing, it is only then that you can truly begin to understand that you are not anything you imagine yourself to be. Not a name, not a role, not a memory, not a body, not a thought. But the one witnessing it all drift by like clouds in the sky. You are not the clouds. You are the sky, colorless and formless, yet encompassing all. If you are still here, perhaps that sky is beginning to open within you. No need to name it. No need to define it. Just return to what is witnessing. If I am not the body, then what am I? We grow up with a quiet conviction that I am this body. I stand at a certain height. I have black hair. I have yellow skin. I have a scar on my forehead. I have a heart that beats, and so I believe that I am the one looking back at myself in the mirror. But if you look more closely, you will notice something strange. The cells in your body are constantly replaced. Your skin ceases to be the same skin after a few weeks. Your blood is entirely renewed after a few months. Your intestines, lungs, liver, all of it regenerates bit by bit. Even your brain is not the same organ it was 10 years ago. This physical body has completely changed itself many times over the course of your life. So if your entire body is changed, then who is the one saying, I am still me? Who is witnessing those changes? Buddhism calls the body the form aggregate, one of the 5 components that combine to form what we call a person, yet it teaches that form is not self, not mine, not my essence. In other words, the body is merely a garment that consciousness borrows, impermanent, unfixed, not the root. Modern psychology agrees. The sense of having a body is a model constructed by the brain from neural signals. Some people who have lost an arm still feel itching in the missing hand. This is called the phantom limb phenomenon. It shows that the feeling of I have a body does not fully match physical reality. It is an inner pattern created by the mind. So if I am this body is just a model, then who am I really? If you have ever sat in meditation, you will discover something simple yet profound. The body is an object of observation. You can feel the breath coming in and going out, notice the heartbeat, sense arms and legs, even observe each sensation as it travels through different regions of the body, and you will realize you are not those things. You are the one observing them. That means the body is not you. You are there, seeing the body operate, but you are not identical with it. If you have ever faced illness, an accident, or the nearness of death, you will recognize that the body can suffer pain, can decay, and yet something within remains. You remain aware, alert, awake. In that moment you understand that you have never truly been the body. You have never been flesh and blood or any biological structure. You are something beyond all that can be seen or possessed. It is like a person entering a house and staying for a while. That person is not the house, only borrowing it for a time. You are the same. You borrow this body to learn, to suffer, to love, to awaken, but not to identify with it. If you have ever lost a loved one, you will see the strange truth. Their body remains lying still, but something has departed, and everyone says they have gone, even though the familiar form is still before you. The living essence is not the body. The living is a stream of consciousness, an existence that cannot be grasped or severed. Science has no name for it. Religion calls it the soul or karmic imprint. Buddhism calls it the mind stream, unborn, undying, merely transforming. If you are sitting here listening and you suddenly sense you have never really been this body, then you are beginning to see, not with the eyes, but with the silence of awareness awakening. You do not need to believe it or force yourself to understand. Simply notice that you are living in a body, yet you are not it. You are the one aware that this body exists. If you perceive that, congratulations. You have just stepped through a door that no one else can open for you. Only you, still and subtle enough, can recognize it. The next question is, if I am not the body, then what am I? Am I consciousness? Is it thought? Or am I precisely the silent witness of it all? Who am I? Ego, memory, or the observer? Pause for a moment, inhale gently, exhale deeply, and then softly ask yourself, who am I? Not to find an immediate answer, but to feel the uncertainty, to notice the mind's excuses when confronted with a question it cannot grasp. Feel the silence where there is nothing left to cling to, and in that space the truth begins to reveal itself. Who am I? Am I the ego that I have called me for all these years? That ego has a history. It was built from childhood memories, from wounds, achievements, fears. It wants to feel sorrow, to feel envy, to feel pride, to feel anger. It constantly seeks recognition. It demands that others validate it. It protects, it defends, it compares, it judges. But if I sit quietly and observe, I see that this ego is not fixed. It changes constantly, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, at times confident, at times collapsed in panic, sometimes feeling like a victim, sometimes feeling like a victor. It is not real. It is merely a movement of the mind, like waves on the surface of water. They have form but no stable origin. Some say I am memory, what I have experienced. But memory can change. Psychology shows that the brain does not store memories like a camera. Every time we recall the past, we reconstruct it with new emotions. That means the past I think is mine is not immutable. It is silently reshaped by mood, belief, and environment. I remember as I want to remember, not as events actually occurred. So if I am memory, then I am a constantly edited film, a story whose narrator is the forger of truth, a mirror clouded by the smoke of emotion. Others say I am thought, the voice inside the head. But if you truly practice meditation or simply observe your mind, you will see thoughts arise and pass away like clouds across the sky. You do not choose your thoughts. You only notice that you are thinking. If you were thought, you would be something uncontrollable. You would be a stream you did not create, a reverberation, not the source. Thus another question arises. If I am not ego, not memory, not thought, then what is the one that knows all of these? That cannot be described by language. It is not an object. It is the subject. It is the one who looks, not what is seen. It is the listener, not the sound. It is awareness, not that which is known. Buddhism calls it the witnessing mind, that which knows without an object, without words, without form, yet is ever present. Krishnamurti named it thoughtless awareness. Heidegger called it authentic presence. Vedanta terms it Atman, though even Atman cannot be named. It neither arises nor ceases. It neither grows nor diminishes. It does not depend on thought. It is not altered by emotion. It simply is awareness and being. When you let go of all definitions of yourself, name, role, memory, personality, thought, emotion, what remains? If you are truly still, truly willing to grasp nothing, you will begin to touch the nameless. That is you, but not the you once imagined. Not the ego, but the realization that the ego is an illusion. And when you see that, a lightness begins to spread. You no longer need to protect yourself. You are no longer the self you once were. You are simply a silent presence witnessing everything as if in a dream. No need to win. No need to be perfect. No need for definitions. It is enough to know you are awareness itself. To return, the question, who am I, cannot be answered with words. It must be directly realized in the depths of your silence. When you no longer strive to grasp, you begin to simply be stage 5. Is consciousness mine? Or is it precisely that which quietly witnesses all? When you are merely a living being breathing, only then can you truly begin to understand that you are not anything you imagined yourself to be. You are not a name. You are not a role. You are not memory. You are not the body. You are not thought. You are the one witnessing all of it drift by like clouds across the sky. You are not the clouds. You are the sky, formless, colorless, yet containing all. If you are still here, then perhaps that sky is beginning to unfold within you. No need to name it. No need to define it. Simply return to that which sees. We grow up with a quiet conviction. I am this body. I stand this tall. I have black hair. I have yellow skin. I have a scar on my forehead. I have a beating heart, and so I believe I am the one looking back in the mirror. But if you look more closely, you will notice something strange. The cells in your body are constantly renewed. Your skin is entirely replaced in a few weeks. Your blood becomes completely new in a few months. Your intestines, lungs, liver, all of it regenerates bit by bit. Even your brain is not the same organ it was 10 years ago. This physical body of yours has changed itself completely many times over the course of your life. So if your entire body has been replaced, then who is the one saying, "I am still me"? Who is witnessing all those changes? Buddhism calls the body the form aggregate, one of the 5 components that come together to form what we call a person. But it teaches that form is not self, not mine, not my essence. In other words, the body is merely a garment that consciousness borrows, impermanent, unfixed, not the root. Modern psychology concurs. The sense of having a body is a model your brain constructs from neural signals. People who lose an arm can still feel itching where that hand once was, a phenomenon called phantom limb. This demonstrates that the feeling, "I have a body," does not fully match physical reality. It is an inner pattern produced by the brain. So if "I am this body" is only a model, then what am I truly? If you have ever practiced meditation, you will discover something simple yet profound. The body is an object of observation. You can feel the breath coming in and going out. You can feel your heartbeat. You can feel arms and legs. You can even observe each sensation as it travels through different regions of your body, and you will realize that you are not those things. You are the one observing them. That means the body is not you. You are there, witnessing the body in operation, but you are not identical with it. If you have ever faced illness, an accident, or the nearness of death, you will recognize that the body can suffer pain and decay, yet something within remains. You remain aware, awake, alive. In that moment you understand. You have never truly been the body. You have never been flesh and blood or any biological structure. You are something beyond all that can be seen or possessed. It is like a guest entering a house and staying for a while. The guest is not the house, only borrowing it for some time. You are the same. You borrow this body to learn, to suffer, to love, to awaken, but not to identify with it. If you have ever lost a loved one, you will see a curious truth. Their body remains lying still, but something has departed, and everyone says they are gone, even though the familiar form is still before you. The living essence is not the body. The living is a stream of consciousness, an existence that cannot be grasped or severed. Science has not named it. Religion calls it the soul or karmic imprint. Buddhism calls it the mind stream, unborn, undying, merely transforming. And if you are sitting here listening, and you suddenly sense you have never really been this body, then you are beginning to see, not with your eyes, but through the silence of awareness awakening. You need not believe it, nor force yourself to understand. Simply notice that you are living in a body, yet you are not it. You are the one aware of the body's existence. If you perceive that, congratulations. You have just stepped through a door no one else can open for you. Only you, still and subtle enough, can recognize it. The next question is, if I am not the body, then what am I? Am I consciousness, thought, the knower, or the silent witness of it all? Who am I? Ego, memory, or the observer? Pause for a moment, inhale gently, exhale deeply, and softly ask yourself, who am I? Not to demand an immediate answer, but to feel the uncertainty, to notice the mind's defenses when faced with a question it cannot grasp, to sense the silence where there is nothing left to cling to, and it is in that space that the truth begins to emerge. Who am I? Am I the ego that I have called me for all these years? That ego has a history. It was built from childhood memories, woundedness, achievements, fears. It wants to feel sorrow, envy, pride, anger. It constantly seeks recognition. It demands that others validate it. It protects, it defends, it compares, it discriminates. But if I sit quietly and observe, I will see that this ego is not fixed. It changes constantly, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, sometimes full of confidence, sometimes collapsed in panic, sometimes feeling like a victim, sometimes feeling like a victor. It is not real. It is merely a movement of the mind, a wave pattern on the surface of water. It has form but no true origin. Some say I am memory, what I have experienced. But memory can change. Psychology has shown that the brain does not store memories like a camera. Each time we recall the past, we reconstruct it through new emotions. That means the past I believe to be mine is not immutable. It is silently reshaped by mood, belief, and circumstance. I remember the way I want to remember, not the way events actually occurred. So if I am memory, then I am a constantly edited film, a story whose narrator is also its forger, a mirror veiled by the smoke of emotion. Others say I am thought, the voice inside my head. But if you truly meditate or simply observe your mind, you will notice thoughts arising and passing away. You do not create them at will. They are like clouds drifting across the sky. If you were thought, you would be something uncontrollable, a flow you did not originate, an echo rather than a source. Thus another question arises. If I am not ego, not memory, not thought, then what is the one that knows all of this? That cannot be described in words. It is not an object, it is the subject. It is the one who looks, not what is seen. It is the listener, not the sound. It is awareness, not that which is known. Buddhism calls this the witnessing mind, that which knows without an object, without words, without form, yet is ever present. Krishnamurti called it thought-free awareness. Psychologist John Hartley referred to it as authentic presence. Vedanta calls it Atman, but even Atman cannot be named. It neither arises nor ceases, neither increases nor diminishes, neither depends on thought nor is altered by emotion. It simply is the knowing that exists. When you let go of all definitions of yourself, name, role, memory, personality, thought, emotion, what remains? If you truly still yourself, truly cease grasping, you begin to touch the nameless. That is you, but not the you once imagined. Not the ego, but the realization that the ego is an illusion. And when you see that, a lightness spreads. You no longer need to protect yourself, because you are no longer the self you once believed. You are simply a quiet presence witnessing everything as if in a dream. No need to win. No need to be perfect. No need for definitions. It is enough to know you are awareness itself. The question, who am I, cannot be answered with words. It can only be directly realized in the depths of your own silence. When you no longer strive to grasp anything, you begin to simply be. Stage 5. Is consciousness something I possess, or is it precisely that which silently witnesses all? When you are merely a living being breathing, only then can you truly understand that you are not anything you imagined yourself to be. You are not a name. You are not a role. You are not memory. You are not the body. You are not thought. You are the one witnessing it all drift by like clouds across the sky. You are not the clouds. You are the sky, formless, colorless, yet holding everything. If you are still here, then perhaps that sky is beginning to unfold within you. No need to name it. No need to define it. Simply return to that which sees. Where do I come from? Not a question to be answered, but a deep abyss. There is a question every child asks at some point. Mom, where did I come from? The usual reply is a smile and a simple explanation. You were born from my womb. You are a gift from heaven. You came from your father's and mother's love. The child hears this, grows up, and seems to forget the question, until, one day amid some existential confusion in adulthood, that question returns, no longer innocent, carrying a silent shock within. Where do I truly come from? I may say I was born on a certain date, but that is merely a marker. Does my true being begin at that moment? Genetics gave me my eye color. Family gave me my surname. Society gave me my language. Yet these are only the outer layers. Did the awareness that knows it exists ever have a birth? Or is it simply the continuation of something that has always been, is now, and never ceases? Science teaches that every atom in your body once belonged to a star that exploded billions of years ago. You are made of stardust, flesh, blood, breath, all a reconfiguration of primordial matter in the universe. In that sense, you did not come from a birth chamber. You came from the universe's beginning. But then another question arises. Where did the universe come from? The Big Bang is the most widely accepted theory, a massive explosion that initiated space, time, and matter. But what existed before that explosion? Silence. Science stops here, for it cannot measure, test, or reproduce anything before time itself began. Theology, on the other hand, says humans were created by God, an omnipotent, omniscient being who fashioned you with intention. But if so, who created God? And if God is uncreated and eternal, does your birth from him truly have a beginning? Perhaps you appear in form, but your deepest essence has never been born. Buddhism follows a different path. There is no creation myth, no prime mover, no one creating anyone, only dependent arising. All phenomena exist through a web of conditions. There is no first cause, no last end, only the ceaseless flow of karma, mind, consciousness, cause, and effect. You do not come from anywhere. You simply manifest when conditions suffice, and you dissolve when conditions lapse. Yet within this teaching lies a profound truth. Though all things are impermanent, knowing awareness, the witness, neither arises nor ceases. When you ask, "Where do I come from?" you look into the past. But if you are still enough, you will see that I am arriving in this very moment, not from a place, but from an unfolding. Each instant, I am born in awareness. With every breath, I exist as if never having existed before. And perhaps it is not I who arrives, but the being that is, I never departed. If you have experienced a near-death event, you will clearly feel that the so-called self may shed layer after layer, yet a faint light remains within, a presence you cannot name, but that you know is there. That point does not belong to time. It did not begin in your mother's womb. It will not end in a grave. It neither comes nor goes. It simply is, persisting through all change. If you are still here, sitting quietly one aimless afternoon, listening to a passage about a question no one can answer, then you have already stepped down, deeper and deeper, into an abyss the intellect cannot measure. In that place, only intuition and presence can guide you further, not to know where I come from, but to no longer need to know at all. In the age of data, quantum computers, brain models, genome maps, and artificial intelligence, people can decode DNA, simulate thought with neural networks, create robots that learn and respond like humans. Yet no one, no matter how brilliant, can answer this simple question: who am I? You can scan the brain to see which regions light up with emotion. You can record EEG to tell if someone is dreaming or awake. You can measure serotonin, dopamine, oxytocin to explain behaviors. But what is consciousness? What is the I that knows what is happening in my brain? All science can say is, we don't know. Modern neuroscience touches the fragile boundary between physics and mystery. Even if every neural connection in the brain is mapped, no one can pinpoint where the self resides. There is no ego center. There is no seat of consciousness. You may lose your memory and still sense yourself. You may sleep deeply and yet part of you hears outside sounds. In a coma, sometimes you awaken and recount seeing a light. Consciousness behaves like a ghost in the system, intangible, immeasurable, but undeniably present. Scientists call this the hard problem of consciousness. Hard not for lack of data, but because consciousness transcends all data. You can analyze someone's nervous system to know if they feel sadness or joy, yet you cannot know how they feel subjectively. No device can measure the first-person experience. No machine can read consciousness from within itself. Here is where science, however advanced, must bow to the vast silence of being. Science must quantify. Consciousness cannot be quantified. Science must model. I cannot be modeled. I am not a product of data. I am the one who knows that the data are being analyzed. Einstein famously said, "The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible." But who comprehends the universe? A biological brain with billions of neurons, or a stream of consciousness that has never been seen but always stands at the center of every experience? Some theoretical physicists, like Roger Penrose, propose that consciousness is a non-computable phenomenon. It cannot emerge from artificial systems because it is not mere information processing, but a foundational state of reality. In certain new physical theories, consciousness is not a byproduct of matter. Rather, matter is a manifestation within consciousness. Thus, not that I was created by the universe, but that the universe appears only when there is someone to know it. This may sound paradoxical, yet in quantum mechanics the role of the observer is no longer vague philosophy. Without an observer, all possibilities remain probabilities. Only upon observation does the universe collapse into a definite state. Could it be that I am not a consequence of the Big Bang, but the origin point for any knowing of the cosmos? This is no longer a scientific question, nor merely philosophical. It is the most profound question of all. If science cannot touch the self, do I need science to know who I am? Perhaps not to know who I am, but to return to the awareness that I am, not through equations or reason, but through wakeful presence. Part 8. Buddhism says there is no self, but there is the one who observes that there is no self. Western philosophy struggles to define the ego. Modern science is helpless before the question of consciousness. Yet over 2,000 years ago, Buddhism declared one simple, world-shaking truth. There is no self, no I, to possess anything, no entity behind life to control or claim it. At first, this may sound like a total denial of existence. But the Buddha did not negate life. He liberated it from the illusion of ownership. In the Anattalaka Sutta, the discourse on the not-self characteristic, the Buddha taught, form is not self, feeling is not self, perception is not self, formations are not self, consciousness is not self. The five aggregates we call I are merely temporary conditions. Nothing is fixed, no eternal subject exists, only a constant coming into being and passing away like waves on the ocean's surface. Yet if nothing is self, then who is the one who knows that? If there is no self, who listens to these words? Who reflects on them? Who quietly absorbs this truth? This is the deepest paradox that Buddhism points to, and also the direct path to the middle way. The teaching does not assert that nothing exists, nor that there is an eternal self. It simply declares all phenomena non-self, but simultaneously acknowledges a witnessing awareness that observes this non-self. That awareness is not the I in the usual sense. It is not the thinker, not the feeler, not the controller. It is pure knowing. This knowing is neither thought nor soul, neither something inside the body nor an object to be pointed at. It cannot be grasped or dissected, weighed or measured. It does not arise or cease. It belongs to no one, for it has no I. It is simply pure awareness, knowing without an owner, knowing without an agent behind the knowing. And that is why the Buddha remained silent when confronted with metaphysical questions. When asked whether an arahant remains after death, he gave no answer, not because he did not know, but because any answer would be misconstrued. As long as the notion of I remains, every word becomes distorted. Only when one sees that there is no one asking does the question dissolve. In deep meditation, practitioners do not vanish, nor do they find the self. They see everything arise and dissolve. Only the knowing remains unchanged. It neither judges nor clings. It simply reflects all phenomena and lets them go. This cannot be comprehended by logic. Logic requires a subject. Pure awareness has no separate subject, nor can it be felt through emotion, which requires a feeler. Pure awareness is beyond both. It can only be directly realized in profound stillness. When you truly let go, no longer seeking, no longer naming, no longer defining, you discover a luminous space, formless, nameless, yet more radiant than any words can hold. And that is why Buddhism does not teach understanding but direct seeing, not intellectual memory but immediate experience, not belief but awake presence. So when you hear the Buddha say there is no self, know that he is not taking anything away. He is returning to you your freedom. Freedom from images, freedom from identity, freedom from fear of losing the self, freedom from the owner, so that you may truly live as a rootless, unbound presence. Only where there is no one can you begin to know what it means to awaken. Psychology. The ego is the shadow that fears being seen. If you have ever heard the Buddha's teachings, you will notice he never tells you to eliminate the ego. He teaches you to see it clearly, and once you see it, it dissolves, not through struggle, but through the light of awareness. Remarkably, this aligns with how depth psychology views the ego. Sigmund Freud, the founder of psychoanalysis, divided the mind into three parts: the ID, instinct, the ego, self, and the superego, overself. The ego acts like a manager, standing between the ID's primal urges and the superego's rigid moral standards. To maintain balance, the ego must suppress feelings, distort memories, and construct illusions of itself, so this tool of psychic equilibrium becomes the artificial center of one's existence. Carl Jung, Freud's student who later struck out on his own, dug even deeper. He spoke of the shadow, the rejected parts of ourselves. Everything we refuse to acknowledge, our unowned anger, hidden envy, denied selfishness, gets shoved into the unconscious, growing ever larger in darkness and subtly directing our behavior from behind the scenes. The ego masks that shadow. It presents a kind face while harboring resentment. It speaks of compassion yet carries buried wounds. It smiles while inwardly trembling with fear. Psychology calls this the self-image, a finely tuned illusion we craft to be loved, to be recognized, to avoid hurt. If you have ever sat alone in the dark and confronted aspects of yourself you never dared admit, you are touching that shadow. You are not bad, but you hold unlit parts. You are not wrong, but you harbor unseen facets. The ego's protective mechanism keeps you from looking at those parts. Depth psychology does not deny the ego, it offers a way not to battle it, but to illuminate it. through observation, acceptance, and profound honesty with oneself. Curiously, this is exactly what meditation teaches. Sit not to eradicate thoughts, but to see them arise and pass without interference, without labeling, simply to know. And when you truly know, the light is switched on, the shadow loses its reason to exist. At its root, the ego is merely a fear of exposure, fear of unworthiness, fear of not being loved, fear of emptiness, fear that letting go leaves nothing behind. Yet behind that fear lies the first glimpse of freedom. The ego is a shadow, not an enemy, but a signpost pointing to where you must look more deeply, not to condemn, but to embrace. You never needed it to be yourself. When you no longer cling to any image and dare to breathe simply as you are, neither beautiful nor ugly, without striving, light begins to shine in. And when that light is deep enough, you see there is no one left to protect. Only a stream of knowing is returning to itself. Part 10. Theology. Does the soul exist? From an early age, we are taught that each human has a soul, a sacred essence deep within the body, unseen and untouchable yet always present, an immortal entity that survives death, transcending flesh and time. In Christianity, the soul differentiates humans from all else. You are intentionally created, endowed with a soul to connect with the divine source. In Islam, the soul is breathed into your body by Allah Himself, part of a holy life force no one can create or destroy. In Hinduism, the soul, Atman, is eternal and unchanging, the very Brahman manifest in each individual. All these theologies share one thread: a sacred, indestructible core exists within you. In extreme pain or loss, when your body collapses, people instinctively cry out, "God, save me." If God truly exists, that cry is no academic belief but the heart's deepest reaction when the ego has nothing left to cling to. Yet the seeker of truth may ask, does the soul really exist? It cannot be seen, scanned, measured, or scientifically proven, only felt or not felt, believed or disbelieved. Buddhism takes a wholly different path. It neither denies continuity nor affirms an immortal self migrating between lives. There is no fixed soul carrying your identity from one lifetime to the next, only karma as a continuum of conditions, only consciousness as an ever-flowing stream that no one owns. You may ask, if there is no soul, who is reborn? The Buddha would smile and reply, no one, yet conditions give rise to phenomena like a flame passing from one candle to another. There is light and warmth and continuity, but no personal flame traveling along. Here faith and wisdom meet and part ways. The faithful cling to a soul to bridge to the divine. The meditator lets go of the self to see that no one needs such a bridge. The question, does the soul exist, has no universal formula, only personal experience. If you have ever sat on an autumn afternoon, watching light filter through leaves and felt something holy in life itself, you may have touched what theology calls the soul, what Buddhism calls pure awareness. Notice that these views need not conflict, only differ in terminology. One speaks of a sacred inner entity, the other of unreified awareness. Both invite you to live more deeply, more awake, untouched by form or mask. So you need not rush to believe or disbelieve. Observe. Quiet yourself. And one day you will no longer need to ask, is there a soul? You will live as though every breath is a miracle, and that is both the soul's life and the life of awareness, whichever name you choose. Why do I live if all is impermanent? All things are impermanent. Sit quietly and look around. Your body ages day by day. Loved ones will one day depart. Achievements will fade. Suffering that feels endless eventually dissolves in memory. When you probe life's heart, you cannot deny impermanence. Buddhism does not teach impermanence to instill fear. It reveals impermanence so you awaken and know that attachment outside guarantees suffering. Yet impermanence also offers liberation. If everything changes, sorrow will pass, wounds will heal, today's confusion may become tomorrow's clarity. A question then echoes, if everything vanishes, why live? If death awaits and time erases all meaning, is life worth living? Albert Camus, who stared into existential absurdity, called suicide the only truly serious philosophical question. He did not advocate death but a rebellious life, no external meaning, no God, no salvation, only the daring to live authentically amid uncertainty. Buddhism neither rejects life nor claims you are here to achieve anything. It invites you to see reality clearly and let go. And when you let go, you lose nothing. Instead, you enter a deeper, quieter, lighter life, not to attain, but to be present, not to possess, but to perceive truth. Some live to get rich. Some live to honor parents. Some live to serve. Some live merely to survive. None of these paths is wrong. But if one day you sit and sincerely ask, why do I live? You begin stepping beyond defaults into a deeper journey, that of finding yourself. The answer lies not in books, not in scriptures, not in success or failure. If there is an answer, it comes when you fully live a moment without striving, just living, just breathing, just being aware you live. You do not live because this life has a clear purpose. You live because life itself is a miracle, not to be explained or named, only to be lived fully. Within impermanence there will be pain and loss. But if you see that pain too is impermanent, you will not despair. You will recognize that beneath all change sits a point of wakefulness, observing, learning, unfolding. When you truly see impermanence, you begin to live in the present moment. No nostalgia, no hope, no calculation, simply living as if this is your only moment. And that is the path of awakening, not to reach something, but to discover that nothing has ever been missing. The reason we cannot answer, the questioner is unstable. The reason we cannot answer is that the one asking is also unstable. We keep searching for an answer to life's greatest question, who am I? But we forget something crucial, who is asking that question? It's like a knife trying to cut its own blade, or a torch trying to illuminate its own flame. The nature of the questioner cannot be seen with the very mind that asks. The more you pursue, the farther you drift, the harder you try to understand, the more confused you become, because the I posing the question is not a fixed entity, not an unchanging self in search of truth. In reality, that self shifts constantly. This morning you feel strong, this afternoon you feel powerless, tonight you feel lonely, tomorrow you brim with hope. That I flows like a river, no stable essence, only a sequence of emotions, memories, thoughts, and self-images assembled into a character called me. And if the questioner is unstable, how can the answer be stable? Today you ask, who am I? But tomorrow that asker is changed. You are no longer who you were yesterday or last year, no longer the child who believed in fairy tales, or the adult who believed in a formula for happiness. Thus the question becomes a loop, a shadow chasing itself. Strangely, this is not defeat but the gentle dissolution of illusion. When you see that no one truly asks, only a process of naming and meaning-making that then vanishes, you begin to no longer need an answer. Not because you know, but because there is no one left to hold the question. In Zen there is a classic koan, show me your original face before your parents were born. The practitioner sits in meditation for months, not to think up an answer, but to see that the seeker of that face is itself an illusion. When the self dissolves, the question dissolves. In Zen no one teaches you to find, who am I? They teach you to observe who is asking, who am I? And in that very observation, the questioner dissolves and only pure awareness remains. If you ask, who am I? You may expect an answer like, I am the soul, I am part of the universe, I am pure consciousness. Yet these are still notions, still concepts, still words of the mind. Pure awareness needs no words. It reveals itself when all concepts vanish, like the moon appearing when clouds clear. It is not that you see the moon, but that the clouds no longer obscure it. The ego is the cloud. The question is the cloud's effort to comprehend the moonlight. When the cloud disperses, the moon is simply there, neither coming nor going. And then you no longer ask, not because you have an answer, but because you see that the one who asked never truly existed. From that point, who am I? Ceases to be a question to solve and becomes a doorway to step through and leave behind. Some journeys go nowhere. They simply reveal that you never departed in the first place. No answer needed, only a return. Back to yourself. Some questions require no answer, only passing through and leaving behind like an outgrown shell. The question, who am I, may have followed you from childhood, through youth, and still knocks each night on the door of your heart. But eventually you realize, you need not answer it, only be still. No effort to become something lofty, no definitions, no expressions, only a return to what is present here and now. Not you, not I, not ego, not soul, but simply awareness, perception, silence, radiance. Not something you attain by effort, but something you forgot in endless seeking. When you no longer ask, no longer fear lacking an answer, no longer cling to anything, then you begin to live truly, living not for status, not for roles, not for anyone, living like clouds drifting, like wind blowing, like flowers blooming, without need for anyone's gaze. Paradoxically, in that state, everything becomes clear. Not because you understood who I am, but because you are no longer veiled by the concept of I. No image of yourself to protect, no story of yourself to reenact, no past to repeat, no future to control, only the present moment, light, simple, profound. You need not go anywhere, need not seek anything, need not become anyone, only remain here, clearly seeing, touching what is. And then you require no answer. It is ever more important to dwell in silence, to abide in presence. We need not live to understand. We live to return to the breath, return to true sensation, return to fear without fleeing, return to love without agenda, return to life as it is. When you truly return, there is no one to accept, nothing to reject, only life reflecting upon itself. You need not figure out who am I, for the very moment you cease asking, you begin to know. Not by thought, not by concept, but by the absolute stillness of a mind no longer struggling. If right now you are still, slow, needing nothing more, then congratulations, you have returned. You crossed no threshold, needed no key, only released every search, and that no one can do for you. Some questions like who am I cease to be questions and become states of being, paths that dissolve into freedom. Who am I is a strange question. The more you chase it, the further you run from it, not because it is wrong, but because the questioner has never been stable, never stood still, never been a fixed point from which to observe itself. We have traversed a long journey, from body to memory, to consciousness, to soul, to pure awareness, from science to philosophy to meditation to Zen koans. Each step shed a layer, each insight released a hold, until nothing remains to grasp, no self left to hold, no reason to continue, because, it turns out, you never left at all. Who am I? No longer a question to answer, but a doorway to step through and leave behind like an old garment, because the one stepping through is no longer the me you once imagined. No image, no history, no role, no narrative, only a full presence. Silently knowing and free. You need not name it, prove it, label it, because when you truly awaken, you do not need to assert who you are. You simply are yourself, the breathing that transcends breath, the awareness that transcends what is known, the living that needs no reason to live. Then you smile, not because you discovered something great, but because you have stopped searching. You need no knowledge, yet you see more clearly than ever. No definitions, yet you are more free than ever. The ancients said, your true nature is inherently pure, neither coming nor going, neither birth nor death, tranquil, full, pervading all worlds. That is not found in scriptures, not learned, but is you when you truly stop. And if now, at the end of this journey, you feel not that you know more, but that you are lighter and deeper, that is a sign you have touched the first threshold of awakening, not understanding, but dwelling, not explaining, but living. Who is the I asking this question? The seeker looking for an answer? Or the silent moment when no one asks? You know, no one needs to tell you. No one needs to remember, only listen. And if you listen deeply, you will hear. Thank you for traveling this path, not to learn something new, but to let go of what is no longer needed. You need not believe me. Simply turn inward, observe, breathe, live, and let truth illuminate the depths of your being. Who am I? Is no longer a question, but a state of living, a state of awakening, a nameless presence, light, radiant, empty yet complete. And you have always been that. Just settle, place your hand on your chest, and ask once more, who am I? The answer may not come today, but if you seek with a quiet heart, a clear mind, and an open spirit, sooner or later truth will reveal itself in this breath. So do not wander far. Do not ask too much. Simply observe yourself now with wholehearted attention. Namo Bhagavate Sakyamuni Buddha.